Believers, I'm a bit angry at the moment. And fear not, I'm not losing my mind. I'm not going to rage or anything like that. I'm just not happy, likely said, about this situation concerning the genocide on black people. Yes, I've called it for what it is, genocide. Let me give you a news story. And for those that are easily offended, leave this video right away. I'm not going to be responsible for your upset feelings and you losing your mind because you didn't hear what you wanted to hear. Okay, let's say there's a news story. Unarmed Jewish men killed by the Dutch police. If this news message would come out, what would be the response? Anti-Semite groups and organizations would rise up saying we should stop this. Even if there are no swastikas involved, they will still associate it with neo-Nazism. Okay, let's say that this happens over and over again. Let's say that within 1 year, it's the 5th time that an unarmed Jewish man was killed. And that Jewish man even asked the police officers to take it easy because he couldn't breathe, but they ignored it. And let's say it's documented on camera and it goes viral, that everyone can see it for what it is. And let's say the Dutch government doesn't do anything about it. They don't even prosecute those police officers nor those police corps properly. What do you think is going to happen? Worldwide, people will stand up against the Netherlands and say, hold on a minute, Netherlands. Why are you acting like Nazi Germany, oppressing the Jews? Well, immediately there would be consequences. They would sever trade ties with the Netherlands. The Netherlands would receive sanctions from the European Union and international courts. People would stop associating with Dutch people. They would enforce consequences immediately. Or let's say it wasn't Jewish people that were the target. Let's say it were Chinese people. Over and over again, unarmed Chinese people are murdered by police officers. Whether it's in the Netherlands or France, whatever. Sooner or later, the Chinese community would be upset, rightfully so. And then a lot of people would say, hold on a minute, we can't treat Chinese people like this. What am I saying here? I'm not pointing the finger at anyone directly. I'm stating things for what they are. I'm an anthropologist and I'm a sociologist. So I see things as they are and I tell things as they are. And of course, I consider other people's feelings. But just because I consider other people's feelings and I'm concerned with how people are, just because I have empathy does not mean I'm downplaying the truth by covering it up with a scam. What's going on against black people in the United States? Not only in the United States, but we see it many in the United States. This is genocide. If this would have happened to any other ethnic group, especially ethnic groups from Europe or Asia, especially East Asia, they would call it right out what it is. This is a genocidal program. Think about it. As a black individual, your life is not certain in the United States. You are more likely to be killed by a police officer, or you are more likely to be ignored when you need help, and you have psychopathic blacks who aren't dealt with by the system. They may come after you when you have success. This is not a situation that should be tolerated by anyone. Yet, they tolerate it happening to blacks. Why? I'm going to explain to you what this is about. For centuries, black people have been portrayed in a negative and distasteful context. That has been the propaganda. Black people were always shown, well, always in general. There were exceptions, but in general, they were always shown in a subservient or a debased condition. And after the colonial times, it went through in advertisement. Africa was always the place with poverty and the place that needed development. Africa was the third world, developing countries. That's how it went. There were a lot of crime and poverty in Latin America also, but the focus was on Africa. and on the ghettos that emerged in the 1970s in the United States, total disintegration of ethnic groups in American society. So what happened over time? Over time, this collective agreement was developed in the world that black people are underdeveloped and that black people need white acceptance in order to succeed in life. And all the other ethnic groups who were not black were therefore seen as better off. So if you were not from the black community, you had it easier in general than if you were black. Now, this violence doesn't add up. There is nothing can justify it. That's why when the violence is exposed, they come up with excuses. Saying, oh, well, but if black people stop complaining, well, slavery already happened, get over it. But hold on a minute. Why do black people who've been oppressed for centuries, non-stop, because oppression did not end when blacks were freed from the slave plantations. It continued in lynchings, and it continues till this day in police brutality, racial profiling, and all other types of covert practices done by systems. And it's tolerated by society. So how come black people who've been the target of genocidal violence for centuries, and that violence continues in a covert way, why are we supposed to just forget about it? But you have Ashkenazi Jews who've been oppressed severely during Nazi Germany for around 12 years, and was very bad at what happened to them, but they remember it every year, and if you say anything about that, they call you anti-Semite and take action against you. So hold on a minute. I don't know exactly how many Ashkenazi Jews died. Some say 6 million, others say 4 million. There are a lot of revisions going on. I'm not going into the numbers that died. You mean to tell me that those 12 years of genocidal violence against the Ashkenazi Jews should be remembered every year? And you're not supposed to doubt what happened about the black people who have suffered genocidal violence for centuries? Around 400 years long, we just have to forget about it? Despite that the violence continues in covert ways, and we are still disadvantaged in many areas because of it? Come on now. Come on. I'm telling you, before you can kill off a population, you need to kill off their reputation. Reputation is everything in this world. If you have a good reputation, or you are in high esteem by the collective, people are less likely to attack you. Because if they attack you, it will backfire on them. People say, why do you attack that guy? He's contributing to the community. He's a good man. He's doing all kinds of stuff for us. What kind of ungrateful wretch are you that you attack an individual that contributes to your safety? So when you are in high esteem, people will be reluctant to say bad things about you because it will backfire. And other people are more likely to defend you when bad things are said about you. So when you have a good reputation, when you are in high esteem, it works in your advantage. When you, however, have a negative esteem in the community, or you can say a bad reputation, people are more likely to tolerate bad stuff being said about you because they esteem you bad, they esteem you low. And this is how it begins. First, they accuse you and they justify them exploiting and abusing you with the accusation. And once this continues, a negative stereotype is developed about you. And then people get used to this negative stereotype and they feel comfortable with it because now they get narcissistic supply out of it. At least they're not like them. At least I'm not going through that. So people feel good about themselves not belonging to your group. So they now benefit from the violence against your group. But they won't admit this because those same people would tell you that you need to man up or woman up and just face things in life, but they don't want to face the fact that they are contributing to collective violence. They don't want to face the type of hypocrites and cowards they really are because they're enabling harm. But they don't want to go there. So then when people are so invested in this negative stereotype about the group, then actions will be taken against the group, and people will be less likely to resist those actions openly because people feel comfortable with that group being the scapegoat. And little by little, the violence increases and increases until you have an open genocidal regime. That's how genocide develops. And that thing is happening to black people right now. But why aren't people calling it genocide? Why is the mainstream media so reluctant to admit it? Because the mainstream media itself is invested in this genocide. Because they are invested in white supremacy. Look, I'm not here to race bait any of you. I'm not here to get views based on the death of these black people. No. I'm here to point out what's going on. This is wrong. This is wicked. This is filthy. This is disgusting. It should not happen. Black people have contributed a lot to the development of the United States throughout the history of the United States, and they were seldom appreciated for it. And this is what they get in return. This is what their descendants get. What is that? And this is the weirdest part of it. You have black people who don't want to admit what's going on. That's the worst part of it. Look, if someone knocks on your door, you open the door, and suddenly the individual jumps on you wanting to rape you, you would kick that individual out, right? Let's say the same individual comes back with the whole group, and now the whole group is determined to rape you one by one. And let's say they do it. Not once, but multiple times. Are you going to say that those people just came around because you dressed too provokingly? Are you going to excuse their behavior one way or the other? No, you would say, come on, those people raped me repeatedly as a group. They violated me over and over again. They were determined. You wouldn't soften what happened, would you? Let's say that this type of violence happens collectively to a whole people, and that's your people, and you are a potential victim also of this violence. Would you turn a blind eye to it? Would you just pretend it doesn't happen? No. You would cry out, hold on a minute, what's going on here? You would at least call people to an account for what's going on. So, the first thing that needs to happen to shut down this genocide against blacks is that black people have to see it for what it is. Stop talking about Democrats versus Republican. Stop talking about what's going on in the hood and all of that. Yes, we as black people, we have our reprobates amongst us that harm us also. We know all ethnic groups have them. You have whites killing whites. You have Asians killing Asians. Arabs killing Arabs. So we have it too. But why is it that only our reprobates of our groups are highlighted and the reprobates of other groups are kind of hidden? So there's dignity in reporting when it comes to all ethnic groups except us. There's also something we need to realize. Why is it that the reprobates amongst blacks are highlighted over and over again? That is a sign that people have put you in a negative box, and they want to keep it in a negative box so that they don't have to be held accountable for how they treat you. So black people need to admit the collective narcissism that is violating us. We need to straight up admit it for what it is. Secondly, because we admit it for what it is, we forfeit our investment in the fake promises of society. The reason why so many black people are reluctant to admit that they are the target of genocide is because they are invested in getting acceptance by this Anglo-American culture that has spread through globalism. That's what they want. So in their minds, they're programmed to seek the acceptance of the white power structure. And because they invest so much in getting this acceptance and they devote themselves to it, now they are in extra pain when they realize that this acceptance was just a scam to trick them into becoming more vulnerable than ever to be exploited and to be killed off. So we need to remove our investments from this Anglo-American globalist culture. How do we do that? We need to become more economically relevant and do our own thing. Yes, we can use the internet. Yes, we can use social media. Yes, we can be in business relationships with people from other ethnicities and all of that. Of course, we do all of that because we're not racist. We're not in any of such stuff. But we, as a group, must stop seeking acceptance from the white power structure. Period. We must be financially independent and do things on our own with each other. But before that's possible, this whole acceptance thing that has become popular since the 1970s should be done away with. The reason why so many black people turn on other black people is because they are projecting their disappointment on other blacks. They feel hurt and embarrassed because they've done all the effort to be accepted and they're still rejected, and now they take it out on other blacks. Now, to stop this black on black violence, we need to look at the root of it. That's seeking this acceptance that we should never have prioritized to begin with. If a group of people came after you to victimize you over and over again, you're not going to turn around to seek their approval just to be left alone so you're not victimized again. That's not logical. In this regard, a lot of black people are mentally ill. Hey, I'm black myself. So I'm saying it as it is. If someone repeatedly victimizes you, let me use the example of rape again. Let's say you're a woman and your husband raped you and he invited all his buddies, over 40 men, and you all had away with you multiple times. Are you going to put in your mind that you need to please your husband better just so that bad stuff would happen to you? The authorities would come in, the police would come, they would rescue you, and they would put your husband and his friends on trial and they would go to jail. And they would put you in a mental institution for you to get psychological help, for you to see that your thinking is quite defective. You're victimized, and now the victimizer owes recognition from you so that he feels at ease, so that he won't get out of hand again. No, the victimizer should be addressed and dealt with properly. Yet, amongst blacks, there is this idea that if we just comply better and please the slave master. Today, the slave master is not the landlord on the plantation. Today, the slave master is the government and the societal institutions that have their roots in devil worship, namely the worship of Apollo, the blonde god. We think if we please the slave master better, the slave master will be kinder to us. Why not get rid of the slave master altogether? Why? Because we believe the false promises of the slave master. And it's time for this to stop. Because listen to me, black people, listen to this, especially black believers. Other ethnic groups may be upset with this genuinely. There are people from other ethnic groups who are really upset with this, and they mean it from the heart that they want to stop violence against black people, and that's good. Such people exist. But for this to stop, we collectively must face it for what it is and take responsibility for the situation. Stop seeking approval from your slave masters. You shouldn't even have slave masters to begin with. And listen, if you're not black and you listen to this, I'm not accusing white people, Asian people, anyone of anything. This is something systematically. The white power structure also oppresses whites, it oppresses Asians, it oppresses everyone. But blacks have a special place in this oppression because blacks are used to give narcissistic supply to the rest of the world so that the rest of the world doesn't have to face that they are oppressed also, but in a different way. So look at the bigger picture. It's not just black people. Black people are used to let others feel like they're better off, even though they are exploited and harmed also, but in different ways. So, stop the genocide against blacks. Be at peace.